and welcome to In Our Community. My name is Liz Holtz, and I'll be your host for today's program. And I'd like to introduce you to a special guest we have with us today, Gabrielle Antolovich, who is the board president of the Billy DeFrank LGBTQ Community Center on the Alameda in San Jose. Gabrielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I love Mountain View.
And we're so happy to have you here on the show tonight. So, Gabrielle, wanted to find out a little bit more about the Billy DeFrank LGBTQ Community Center there in San Jose. And for our listeners who are not familiar with the term LGBTQ, that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, queer, and questioning.
Queer or questioning.
Or questioning.
Doesn't really matter.
Okay. And so Billy DeFrank is a 501c nonprofit agency, but unlike most nonprofits, you operate as a community center.
I know, it's a strange mix. You know, a lot of the LGBTQ community centers around the country have become service organizations where you can get counseling and medical services, all these kinds of things. And that then makes them in competition with all the other nonprofits, whereas we are maintaining our community center status because LGBTQ people like to be with each other, so that a community center is more of a place where even though some of us want services, we go to the community center to find out where you can go. But in the meantime, you know, we can do things like go to gay bingo and enjoy being with each other. And yes, there are discussion groups and there are some support groups, but it's not really a service. It's just a place where we can talk about ourselves or talk about issues and be with each other. So some of it's social and some of it's serious discussions. And some of it is just being with each other.
Well, and to that point, I know that the DeFrank Center has a lot of different special events throughout the year. Right now, you have a crazy hat and wig party coming up, which sounds like a blast.
That's so gay. But you know, what's really interesting is our allies, which is the non-LGBTQs, they love that kind of stuff because they usually only get to do that around Halloween.
Right.
Crazy hat and wigs. But we're giving people an opportunity to do it in July.
And then I know that throughout the year, like at holidays and stuff, you always have luncheons.
Well, you know what's interesting is that we have Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day, and it's between 11 and 2, which is before everyone has their Thanksgiving and Christmas. So what we call it is get your gay on, and then you can be out there with family and everybody else with that little bit of support and strength by having been with your own people and having an LGBT Thanksgiving and an LGBT Christmas. We even had an LGBT Valentine's, and we even had an LGBT Mother's Day, and then you can go and see your real mother.
Yes. Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and because you're a community center, like you mentioned, you don't offer, you know, you're not a service organization, but you do have, you act as a host to many other support groups and service organizations that come and actually conduct meetings at your facilities.
Absolutely. In fact, a good example is right now, Supervisor Ken Yeager's office just gave out $1 million to a number of different organizations to provide services. So what I'm doing, I'm in the process of asking each of the service organizations to facilitate a group discussion at the Billy DeFrank Center so that if people want services, they can then refer them to their agency. And it's like a portal, because not everyone knows that they need a service until they're in a safe environment, which is what the Billy DeFrank Center is. I don't know if you've ever had the experience where you're really uptight and then finally you're with your own people and you go, ah. You know, and so when you're in that, oh, I'm with my own people, then you allow what you truly need to bubble up. And so in that safe environment, people go, well, maybe I do need counseling, because when your defenses are up, you don't need anything. You know, that's the American way. I'm self-sufficient. You know, but when you're in a safe environment, you go, well, maybe I do need whatever.
So the community service center serves as a point for people to build community, to build camaraderie, to share time with people of like mind and like interest.
Yeah, and we have lots of different kinds of groups. We have a Latino men's group, we have a women's discussion group, we have a transgender women's group, a transgender men's group, we have 12-step meetings there, we have, you know,
you also have like meditation and yoga groups that meet there. So you know, I think it's just fabulous.
Yeah, gay yoga is amazing.
I still need to make it over for one of the gay bingo nights.
Oh, yes.
Because your bingo caller, Mona Lotmore,
well,
is that her name?
There's a lot of different bingo callers. So the thing to remember is you don't have to be gay to go to gay bingo. You know, what it really is we have more fun. And that's the thing that's really important. Because in some bingo places, it's very serious. You're not allowed to talk, you know. But we just hoot it up. But you still get to dab all the numbers and win money and win prizes. So it's like a real bingo game.
And you don't have to wrestle with the little old lady, right?
Well, some of us are little old ladies, but we don't wrestle them.
So, now the Billy DeFrank Center was originally started in 1981.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about what was the impetus for creating a LGBTQ
There was a big
political
fight around gay issues, and they raised a lot of money at the time, and they had money left over. And then they realized that there's a lot of young people who are being disenfranchised and are being ostracized by their families or kicked out by their families, and they didn't have anywhere to go. So they started this tiny little place that was a safe place for young people. And then the older people started a board of directors and, you know, turned it into a nonprofit. And so it was a safe place to be. And, you know, San Jose and Santa Clara County is an unusual place where the elected officials and the high-ups in law enforcement and service organizations are very liberal and accepting, but the population itself is very conservative. And that's where LGBTs live, is in the community, and it's like, eh. And so we created that safe place to be, which again is like, we get to be ourselves. And that's so much more fun.
So can you tell us a little bit about Billy DeFrank, the center's namesake?
Well, Billy DeFrank was an African-American drag queen. That's his drag name. His real name is William Price, and the front part of the building is called the William Price Room, which is his actual name. And Billy DeFrank did a lot of fundraising for the LGBTQ community. And so he was very much loved the community and really brought everyone together. Because way back when, you know, the LGBTQ community is not one community. There's gay men, lesbians, transgender women, transgender men. Then there's young queer people, vintage, older people, and we're all different and don't necessarily get along. But what Billy DeFrank did was he was an entertainer and brought everyone together. And that is really the legacy that he has left with us. And as the board president, I want to embrace that. So that's why on our card we have our slogan, Better Together. You know, and that's all of us within the community that are so different from each other, that we're better together
than apart.
Yes.
Yes, and also better together with the greater community as a whole as well.
Exactly.
So earlier this year, of course, the Billy DeFrank Center celebrated their 35th anniversary, which is wonderful. And I wanted to talk to you, you know, I know that you guys did a little remodeling, a little spiffing up, some new paint.
Carpet.
Stuff, new carpets and stuff in anticipation of the big celebration for weekend for the 35th anniversary. But if you look at what the center was back in '81 when it started and how far it's come now, what are some of the big things that are significantly different at the center now?
Well, it used to be a tiny little place. Now we're huge. That's a big difference. But I think times have changed too. And how can I put it? Especially now, I came out in 1966, which was before the explosion of coming out. And when we first came out in 1969 with the Stonewall riots that happened in New York, it was a move forward. We were so excited to come out of the closet. But through the 70s, there was a backlash. And we see that with the African American community, immigrant communities, that whenever there's a push forward, there is a backlash from the dominant culture. And so that's what we're experiencing now. Just over a year ago, we got gay marriage. Like, who knew this would happen? I'm still in shock. But there has been a backlash to that, where there is a move in different states to use the religious right to discriminate against LGBT marriage and businesses. And there's been, you know, the Orlando shooting. There's been horrendous negativity from certain politicians. There's been extra murders and slayings of LGBTs, and especially the transgender community. Transgender women of color are murdered and stabbed and shot more than anyone in our community, and it's like, it's awful. And so when we look at the forward, there has been a huge backlash. And so now our community center is really needed to bring everyone together to talk about this, and how are we going to make sure love wins? You know, and we need each other more than ever to make sure love wins.
And, you know, at the community center, you provide a lot of different types of spaces for people to come together around. Stuff. So we have a huge ballroom, and we have smaller rooms upstairs, and we have an LGBTQ library, and you can meet there. We also have game night on Friday night, but you know, it's a good meeting place as well. And you also do art exhibits in the library, if I'm not mistaken.
We not only do art exhibits, but also have authors do readings and show off their books.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
And then you also have a cyber center.
Yes, the David Bonet Foundation has donated and recently upgraded all the computers, which is wonderful because so many people don't have access. So we have that. Yes.
And then I know as part of the 35th anniversary celebrations, you put together a little project earlier this year that you did a tremendous job with on the Alameda, and that was putting in the rainbow crosswalk.
Well, you know, I did put it out there in the presence of Mayor Sam Liccardo. And I put out a lot of ideas, that being one of them. But when he got up and spoke, he said, I'm an elected official and I work for you. And Gabrielle has me working on a rainbow crosswalk already. And I went, I did? and so a couple of months later, I get called into his office with the Department of Transportation and his people, and I had taken a photograph of the crosswalk and photoshopped the rainbow in so I could show them. And they were thrilled. And they said, it'd be a good idea to join the Alameda Business Association to make sure they embrace this, because this is all of our Alameda. It's not just our little piece. And I have, and it's been a fantastic experience. I love everyone at the Alameda Business Association, and it's really helped that slogan, we are better together. And they love the rainbow crosswalk.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you had a ribbon cutting ceremony.
A rainbow
ribbon cutting ceremony.
You know.
And if I recall, I believe I saw pictures of you doing the Beatles walk across the...
Yeah, we call it the Gay Abbey Road walk. Yes, everyone loved that.
Yeah, that was a very, very cute photo. So, also, would you tell us a little bit about, I know you have some, like special projects over at the Billy DeFrank Center.
See, I created this cute card which has the rainbow on the back, and it's the cheat sheet for all of our volunteers at the front desk. You know, when people come in and say, well, what do you do here? And I go, use this. Because, you get so excited and you forget something. So, and so one of the things we love to do is not just have gay bingo, but we have drag queen bingo once every, on the third Wednesday, which is very exciting. But we also have free HIV testing, and that's really good. And what's fascinating to me about that is not only LGBTs go and get their free testing at the Billy DeFrank Center.
Because anybody is welcome at the center.
Everyone's welcome, but some of the people, the allies, go there because it's away from their own community. So it's safe for them in a different way. So that is so cool. And when we have huge events, they open up the HIV testing site. So if you're at the event, you can go get a test.
You can just kind of go and get tested, while you're, off at the restroom or,
Yes. So, I mean, it's exciting. And then we have, what I love is our vintage luncheon program. And we have a contract with the county to do that. And we love to use the word vintage because that's so much more sophisticated than a senior program.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's just adorable. And that's a weekly meeting?
Actually, it's every Wednesday and Friday.
Oh, okay. So they twice a week, the elders, if you will, have an opportunity to come together and share some time with each other.
I know.
Discussing.
And that's one of the big issues that seniors have, is that having that socializing time, because the luncheon program is county-wide, and you get this little barcode and card, so you can go to any luncheon site, but ours is specifically LGBTQ. So we're going to be doing PR at all the others in case there's some of them hidden in there.
Well, they would like to come and join. Or, get an opportunity to check out, different sites. So, also I want to talk to you a little bit about, the type of support in the community. Oh, and so I know you get volunteers over at the community center.
Yes. We have your standard volunteers at the front desk and in the library, and then someone who's a manager on duty that troubleshoots everything, keeps an eye on everything. But then there's other ways people volunteer. I have a couple of people who are, volunteering doing this fundraiser, the Crazy Hat and Wig Party. It's really a silent auction, how we're going to hopefully make a lot of money, because it's for our support program. And so that's one of the ways people volunteer, is they give their time to do fundraising events. We also have a young person who coordinates our Artsplosion for young queer artists, and she does everything. I'm so amazed. I'm just her support, when she needs an extra table or chairs or whatever. I'm really impressed. And so she puts together this whole Artsplosion of young queer artists that donate to the DeFrank Center.
And then you also get volunteers from outside groups. So, like, if somebody wants to do...
that kind of volunteer is different. Yes. So we have a huge building. We also have a city parking lot with a lot of weeds in the ground. So high-tech companies like Ernst & Young, and I always forget, KMGP and LifeLock have come to the center with 20, 30 volunteers. So Ernst & Young painted the entire ballroom, which was incredible. And then Rebuilding Together coordinated with Ernst & Young and painted the outside of the building. All we had to do was, power wash it beforehand.
Nice.
Yes, and change the trimming.
And I also understand that recently the Santa Clara County earmarked over $1 million in funding for LGBTQ-related programs county-wide.
That's
so
right.
I imagine that's going to be beneficial not only to the DeFrank Center, but also to some of these other service organizations that you alluded to.
I know, so we can refer more to people and ask them to do some of it here at the DeFrank Center. But we also got some of the funding, because what we have found, is, and it's for our seniors, is that when seniors need to go into assisted living, even if the owners and managers are LGBT friendly, most of the seniors there are not. So a lot of our people feel like they have to go back to the closet. And they're already older, tired, perhaps have, aches and pains, and don't have it in them to fight the fight. So what we're going to do is invite all the senior services that want to serve the LGBT community. They'll have tables of information, and then they have to sit through workshops that our seniors will give to talk about what their issues are.
That's wonderful.
I know.
That is a really wonderful thing. And, it's that type of training that helps people in the community become more familiar and more compassionate.
Yes.
When dealing with something, or people that they're, or a group that they're not necessarily familiar with.
Exactly. And then we have asked the County LGBTQ Office of Affairs to then train those managers and owners on what they can do specifically and proactively to dispel the homophobia in their facility. So that's great.
Very cool. So, one of the things that we talked a little bit about earlier that you mentioned was the mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando.
Yeah.
And, everything that happened after that. And I know that the center, you guys did a vigil.
Well, as a community center, I felt I heard, it happened Sunday morning, and so within hours we had organized a vigil, and over 300 people showed up. We had it outside. We opened up the front of the building so people could sit down. I asked the police to show up. They sent the motorcycle police, which was great because, just down the street was a huge event at the SAP Center for the Sharks, and all the police were there, but they still gave us our share of the police. So that was beautiful. And some major people showed up to show their support.
Yeah. So one of the things before we start finishing up is I know you mentioned that sometimes these types of incidents cause a backlash in the community, and how do you manage this as a community center, as a community?
Well, like I've said, love has to win. So I've been attending a lot of the vigils with the African American community who've had African Americans shot, and also the police who have been shot in Dallas. So, and now Paris has had a massacre. We're all one, really. When one person is hurt, we're all hurt. And so that's why we all have to gather together to make love win. And, it's more than a slogan because, just last Sunday there was a huge vigil in the African American community. And a lot of us showed up because they know we've had the same thing happen.
Yeah.
And that we want to be part of the positive energy.
Part of the solution.
Yeah. And we have to live that. And
Absolutely.
It's hard.
So, Gabrielle, if people want more information about the Billy DeFrank LGBTQ Community Center, which is quite a mouthful.
I know.
Then the best place to get current information is on the Facebook site.
Facebook/Billy DeFrank.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So it's www.facebook.com/Billy DeFrank. And check it out. Follow you on Facebook.
Yeah, follow it. Don't just like us, follow us.
And Gabrielle, thank you so much for coming this evening. And it's been such a pleasure. And we will definitely need to have you back again.
Yes, rainbows everywhere.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.